brother! Jay, today we tried to tackle one of the oldest questions in all of Harry Potter. Why are they called Death Eaters? Hey, brother! We may not call them Death Eaters, but if you subscribe to this channel, you're a friend. Death Eaters, Voldemort's most trusted followers, his inner circle, those who bear the dark mark, those capable of summoning him on a moment's notice, almost as evil as Baldo numero uno himself. And I say a moment's notice, but let's be real. But Death Eaters, it certainly sounds evil enough, but it almost seems like it would refer to something specifically, but it's never really explained. I mean, are they like eating dead people? It would certainly fit the name, but to what end? Actually, one of the more popular theories out there is that the name Death Eater kind of comes from the process in making a Horcrux. J.K. Rowling all but refuses to tell us the procedure, and probably for good reason. We don't want a whole bunch of immortal murderers running around. But she did once tell her editor, who reportedly almost threw up upon hearing how it was made. Since the answer to both questions is shrouded in mystery and both have to do with the same group of people, I can see why in general people would believe that they'd be connected. The common working theory is that the Death Eaters actually need to eat Voldemort's victims in order for him to create a Horcrux. And yet this just isn't the case. We never hear anything close to the idea of this happening, and Voldemort does most of his Horcruxing alone. In fact, he doesn't even seem to want his Death Eaters to know that they exist. Yes, he does let Bellatrix and Malfoy guard two of them, but neither of them actually know what they're guarding. So no, I don't think that the name comes at all from cannibalism, but fortunately, J.K. Rowling has dropped a few breadcrumbs along the way that might help us figure it out. For one, they weren't even always called Death Eaters. In an interview with J.K. Rowling, she reveals that the original band of Death Eaters were actually called the Knights of Walpugis. I'm sorry, the what? It kind of seems like a weird mix between like nobility and just word vomit. Walpurgis. Purge. Ugh. Though that would still probably fit the cannibalism theory. But no, we have done some digging on this, and the name is definitely a play on Walpurgisnacht, or Walpurgis Night, a night in German and Dutch culture, which literally translates to Witch's Night. Witch's Night takes place on April 30th and involves burning lots of fires and dancing. The fires are meant to be keeping away witches who are meeting on Debunking, the highest peak in the Harz Mountains in Germany. The dancing was just for fun. Not related, but fun thing that I learned while researching this video was the phenomenon of Brockenspector. That's Brocken space Spectre, not an inspector of Brocks. It's basically where you stand on top of a misty mountain and the sun behind you actually casts a rainbow around your body in shadow. But back to Walpurgis Night, the witches would be meeting there to hold revels with the devil. And it was because it was during a time when it was believed that the barrier between the living and the dead was much weaker. So we have magic folk meeting with the Dark Lord and fighting death. I can kind of see how Voldemort fits in here. Minus the dancing. But believe it or not, there's actually another inspiration for the name. One Walburga Mengele something? Mother of Joseph Mengele, who was a Nazi doctor and did terrible experiments at Auschwitz. His lovely mother, and by lovely I mean, you know, like when you just scratch your fingernails down chalkboard, was also extremely cruel and a huge Nazi supporter. Nazis, of course, maybe being the best real-world example of Death Eaters. Either way, you could see how Voldemort's following would take inspiration from, like, real-world Nazis. Although, if that doesn't tell you, there could be another explanation. There's actually an asteroid named Walpurga. But that's just, like, up there floating in space. It's a little bit harder to tie to Voldemort. Or is it? After all, Voldemort can fly, and flying is like floating. Do you see where I'm going with this? When he's not looking, we can just tie a rope around Voldemort's foot and then summon him to somewhere where Harry is supposed to be. As soon as he takes flights or floats, we just tie the other end around an asteroid. Boom, bam, tied it together. Totally. Or not, especially since there actually is a pureblood wizarding family that names all of their children after celestial things. The Blacks. Sirius and Regulus are both names of stars. Their father is Orion, which is the name of that like 3-dot constellation that kind of makes it seem like you know things about space when you're looking up at the sky. And of course, their mother's name, which is, wait for it, Walburga. And now we're getting somewhere. Walburga Black, the horrible portrait at number 12 Grimwald Place that's constantly going on and on about blood traders. I love how she has a huge problem with Muggleborns, but then like marries her second cousin, which also weirdly means that both of her sons are like her second cousin. Ugh! Walpurgis is right. But yeah, her. Guess, just guess when she was born. 1925. Oh yeah, I didn't tell you why that's important. It's important because of when Voldemort is born, 1926. And we absolutely know that she was in Slytherin House, which means that she absolutely would have been at Hogwarts when just 1 year later, none other than new to the wizarding world, Tom Riddle enters and gets sorted into Slytherin. Can it be a coincidence that just 1 year ahead of Tom Riddle is a very vocal blood elitist who just so happens to have the same name of the group he would later form to carry out the exact same views? Well, of course it's never explicitly explained, and Walburga and Orion never actually joined the ranks of the Death Eaters, although they do believe in the cause. But so let's think just a little bit more about Tom Riddle's years at Hogwarts. He, of course, enters a world he never knew that he was a part of, is immediately sorted into Slytherin House, but he couldn't or wouldn't have ever had the opportunity to even know to have prejudice towards any of the other students. That's a learned thing. So where did he learn it from? Enter Walburga. And now I want to make it super clear that I am not in any way, shape, or form suggesting any kind of romantic relationship here, but based on the portrait at Grimwald Place, I have a feeling she was a rather outspoken person. And I would imagine that being part of the Black family would give you some sway in Slytherin House. Sirius even says, "My parents with their pure blood mania were convinced that being a Black made you practically royal." It sounds like at least a few members of the family would have been present at Hogwarts at that time. We'd of course have Orion and Walburga, but then also Alphard Black. Walburga, though, is the eldest, and it would seem possible that her beliefs would get passed on to Tom, thus inspiring the name Knights of Walpurgis. But that still doesn't help explain how we get to Death Eater from there. What do we actually know about the Death Eaters? Well, for one, their symbol is the Dark Mark, a skull with a snake for a tongue. Or is it? Is the snake a tongue, or is it a tasty treat? The incantation for the Dark Mark is Mors Mordre, which literally translates to bite death. So yeah, I don't think it's a snake tongue. I think it's a snake snack. Snake snacks. Which, by the way, this video is brought to you by Snake Snacks. The snackiest snakes. Actually, I'm just kidding. But maybe it's not the skull that's supposed to represent death, but rather the snake. Take a look at this symbol, the Ouroboros, the snake eating its own tail. This is the symbol of immortality, the very thing that Voldemort is after. The symbol is almost the perfect representation of Voldemort's greatest ambition, right down to the snake. Listen to this. Represents coming full circle. The Ouroboros is an ancient symbol depicting a serpent eating its own tail. The name originates within Greek language, aura meaning tail and boros meaning eating. Thus, he who eats the tail. Snake snacks, the snakiest snacks. The tail, as in the end that the skull bites, is not just the physical end of the snake, but also the metaphorical end of life. Going back to the Dark Mark, the end that the skull is biting down on is not just the end of the snake, the tail of the snake, but also the metaphorical end of life. Mors Mordre, to bite death, summons a skull biting the tail of a snake. The goal is immortality. They seek to destroy death. They eat death. They are Death Eaters. And the symbol goes deeper than that. Again, the Dark Mark represents the Death Eaters, but it's not even like Voldemort 100% came up with the symbol on his own. He would have first seen a snake emerging from a mouth deep below Hogwarts Castle in the Chamber of Secrets. This discovery, this confirmation that he was the true heir of Slytherin, that he was the one destined to carry out all of the beliefs of his fellow Slytherin classmates, I believe that is the moment they became Death Eaters. Not only does the symbolism we just discussed fit in, but I feel like the basilisk itself represents death in a much more visceral way, in a giant fanged snake trying to kill you kind of way. And of course, the basilisk resides inside of the statue of Salazar Slytherin and enters and exits through the mouth. Just another way that Slytherin himself was eating death. So again, we ask, why the Knights of Walpurgis? Well, that one is maybe less profound, but adds up all the same. It's just this simple. The group was initially named after their beacon of pure-bloodedness, Walburga. The name was just then adjusted to Walpurgis for the name/date she was kind of named for. Later, when he finds the Chamber of Secrets, it confirms his heritage and he changes the name. And now I know we don't have any proof at all that Tom Riddle would have actually looked up to anyone, let alone Walburga, but it would explain maybe why he was snooping around the girls' bathroom. I mean, after all, I feel like Tom Riddle would have been way too proud to believe that Salazar Slytherin would have left the entrance to the Chamber of Secrets underneath the toilet. Tom Riddle, why were you in the girls' bathroom, man? Guys, for my question of the day, what do you think? Is this the inspiration for the name Death Eaters? Basically, when I came across Ouroboros, that was the conclusion for me. That idea of like immortality and eating death completely made sense. But be sure to leave your thoughts in the towel section down below. Guys, as always, thanks for watching. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If you'd like some more Super Carlin Brothers action from us, you can click right here to check out our gaming channel. Jay and I play Mario Kart twice a week, and we just answer all of the questions that you guys send us. It's super fun. Or if you would like to join our Discord through our Patreon, you can click right here. The Discord is incredibly fun. It's a chat room with like the entire Super Carlin Brothers community. It's an absolute blast. I highly recommend you check it out. But Jay, that's all I've got for you today, man. I will see you on Tuesday.